Fractional is not only a great solution, it is a wonderful mirror from which to look at your own business.
Welcome to the Fractional Edge podcast, the ultimate podcast where we unlock the power of workforce planning and discuss the rapidly growing fractional executive staffing strategies to supercharge your business.
Meet your hosts, Carol Fraser, a workforce planning expert, fractional chief human resources officer, and founder of C4 Talent.
And Jason Huett, the sensei of marketing, fractional chief marketing officer, and founder of Fifth Degree Marketing.
We'll bring you insights from seasoned pros, inspiring success stories, and actionable strategies to optimize your valued workforce.
Don't miss this chance to upgrade your business with top industry leaders in today's competitive landscape. So tune in and learn how to unleash your competitive edge. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Fractional Edge. My name is Carol Fraser. I am a fractional CHRO, and joining me with my co-host, Jason Huett, who is a fractional CMO. And our guest today is John. John, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is John Arms. Like you, I am a fractional person as well. The bigger part of me is that I lead the VoyageurU fractional community and education. And by virtue of that, sometimes I feel like I'm leading the Voyager movement in America. So that's what I do.
So when you say the Voyager movement, what exactly is the definition of that?
Oh boy, there's so many ways you can look at that. So the fractional movement is usually what I'm talking about there. And the fractional movement, so many components, but for the most part, it is a tremendous amount of people saying, I can have more impact in my career. I am not destined to be stuck in corporate America, maybe moving the needle 1/1,000,000% I can do more. So I'm going to go fractional to do that. And there's so many dimensions with that, right? I mean, millions of people are doing this. It's what gave us the Great Resignation. It's what's giving us quiet quitting. And I just read something today called loud quitting. I have to read more on what loud quitting is. Carol, I'm sure you probably already know what that, I have my suspicions on what that is. So, but that movement from people like, I need to have more impact in my life, make more money, have more joy in my work. And it's just not always happening in corporate America. So that's the movement at play. The other side, of course, is the buying side of that. Where are the businesses that are like, I need me some of that. And that's 33 million businesses in America. They're like, hey, I need to grow. We have big aspirations. We have big goals. We can only bootstrap so long. What are all these new fractional, wonderful, wise people I can have access to now? So those are the two sides of the movement that are happening right now in fractional.
John, I have to ask, and with your background as a CMO, Carol, I really want to dig into all the CMO stuff, of course, but John's got his hands in a lot of different things. So the one question I will ask is, can you describe the path that you took? Did you start off in corporate America and then move into fractional yourself? How did that work?
Yeah. So I'm 55 years old. So you can imagine I've touched a lot of companies at this point in my life and in my career. And my first job out of college was with Best Buy. When they were really roaring. I mean, when their arc was just going. So I don't know if you can get more corporate America than a company like that. And so spent some years in there, and then spent the rest of my years in agencies, including one that I created. I come from marketing, and so serving huge businesses. I mean, Fortune 10 companies. And when you are a company serving companies like that, you're right there. You're feeling the culture, you're feeling the pluses, the minuses, the wins, the losses, you're right there. So I've had quite an immersion, both inside and then serving super large companies.
How did you like that as compared to working with maybe smaller clients? Do you have a preference?
I will be honest, I didn't like it. I didn't care for it at all for a myriad of reasons. I think the most is it is way more rewarding to help, let's say, a $10 million company advance themselves 10, 20% a year, however you would measure that, right? Like achieve the goals they want to achieve and help them have the impact, and whether it's a new product or a new service. And it is so rewarding to see that. All of the Fortune 500 companies now were those businesses one day. And you often hear people who were in those businesses, boy, wouldn't it have been nice to be working for Microsoft in the early days or Apple in the early days when they were in the garage or early state. Well, as a fractional, that's what we're doing. The businesses we're serving now are not trying to survive. They're trying to grow, and super fulfilling. I would also say the relationships are more meaningful. People really rely on you. When we teach fractional in our boot camps, we talk about there's 7 energies to fractional, and ally energy is one. We're allies. When you're working when I was at Best Buy, I wasn't an ally to anybody. I was a small little gear in a massive machine. And of course, since then, the way our work culture has sort of settled, and of course, is now changing into this kind of weird shareholder economics model where we don't really care about the people that much. Didn't care for that. Don't care for it now. There's more to us than that.
Sure.
So you had talked about something about your boot camps. That's part of VoyageurU, yes?
Yeah, we do training. So there's 2 parts to VoyageurU. There's community. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to assemble all the people who want to be fractional and give them a place, give them a home, give them their own people. And then the other part is education. Fractional was never taught. Consulting and freelancing has been a thing. Fractional is relatively new. It's new since the pandemic. And do I get in arguments about this all the time? Absolutely. It's just consulting. But it's not. It is its own thing. It is absolutely its own thing. So we like to think of ourselves as we're the Fractional 101. If it was a college course, that's what we do. We want to educate millions of people what this is, and it's an option for them. And by doing so, empower them for the things that are really on mission for us, which is mission for them.
So when someone goes through your boot camp, you're taking people like you, like myself, like Jason, who we were once executives, and now we're wanting to do something much more purposeful, right? And but what is it that the boot camp empowers the fractional to know, to have, to be able to service their clients with more value? Yeah,
for sure. So I'll go back to Fractional 101. So when you take people like us who had a corporate career, there was nowhere in any of our lives for decades that said, here is how you become independent from us at corporate company. Here is how you do all the things to be an independent professional. There was department upon department that did all the things to run a business. But it just wasn't in our work culture. It's like, here's how to thrive as an independent, self-determined person. So what that tells us is, well, if you don't have if you have the desire to do it, but if you don't have a foundation, and when I'm talking foundation, just even an understanding of what is fractional, if you don't have the foundational elements and some level of training and understanding of what fractional is, you wouldn't succeed. You wouldn't expect yourself to succeed. And we identified okay, we have to help people understand it. Do you guys remember? Of course we do. When Apple came out with the first phone that didn't have buttons, and BlackBerry went, that's crazy. All phones must have buttons. It makes no sense. It was just new, and we had to get it in our hands and we had to use it, and they had to do a tremendous amount of training. New technology and new movements require us to do some new learning. And we've taken that mantle. When we had the experience of going fractional ourselves, Jason and I, my partner and I, in 2018, we went, wow, there's no roadmap here. There isn't. So let's make one. Let's help others. And that comes down to the what we think fractional can do for America is it can do so much. I mean, it can do so much culturally, socially, economically, and we want to unleash that.
I don't know, John, if you can share this because it sounds like it might be part of the program, but you mentioned 7 energies. Is that part of VoyageurU?
Yeah.
Curious, what are the energies? I want to know now.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll give you a couple just to start.
Okay.
So we train when we do Fractional 101. We train on, the first part is training. How do you do this? What is it? How do I get it? And that has a lot of the things that you would think would be in there. How do you do biz dev? How do you understand your value proposition? How do you get and retain a client? Structural things, right? Good. Need to have it. Processes and procedures are different here, and we've codified that. The energies are the soul part of fractional. That's often how I'll refer to it when I'm teaching, is you're practicing both from your head and your soul. And that has a lot more to do with these fractional energies. So one of the first fractional energies we talk about is community energy. So how do you do community? What does community mean? How do you get support around you? Who are your colleagues? How do you help others and get helped? So these are very soulful mindset things. So community energy is a very big one. We know that's why community is important to us. And there's a few communities that are just awesome. Fractionals United is just an amazing community with very similar goals as ours. And we share a lot because we know that if we can help people help each other together, they'll become more successful. I'm a raving Vikings fan. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. When you walk into the U.S. Bank Stadium, you feel the community, you feel the energy. Well, we can have that with Fractional if we endeavor to create a community like that. So we train on community energy. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Another one that's really, really important is ally energy. And in the training, I use Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, working so wonderfully together as they did dancing. But when you are an ally, when you're fractional, you're also an ally to your client. They're not just looking at you to do the thing. So Jason, as you and I who come from from marketing, and Carol coming from HR, we know the things. We're very good at the things. We know that there's got to be SEO and SCM. And Carol, there's got to be some version of onboarding and things like that. We know the things because we have all this gray hair and we've been doing the things. That's not the end of our value. It's rather, quite honestly, it's only about half of it. The been there, done that, the ability to see around the corners ahead, the ability to look that owner or leader in the eye and say, I've got you. I've been here. You don't have to carry all this stress alone. And their ability to look at somebody who's, 45, 55, 65 years old and go, yeah, I can trust that. That's allyship. And it's a huge, huge energy that has to do with fractional. I'm going to stop on those two, not because there's 5 more and I'd like to share them all, but and it's not like it's IP, but I'm sure you have other questions to ask.
Actually, you know what? I want to lean into this for a couple of reasons. One, I'm an executive coach and I actually espouse that energy leadership as well, so that we can help to remove blockers, address the assumptions and limiting beliefs, and really trying to show leaders how their energy enters the room before they do. And if you don't address that, then it doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. But what you said around the allyship, so for our listenership, the CEOs, the founders, the executives who are making decisions, what you're saying here is something that I think they don't really understand.
No,
and they believe that they're getting that by hiring a full-time person, and they're going to miss it in a fractional person. So can you delve into kind of, what you teach fractional people on how to work with how to work with CEOs and executives, and help our listenership understand why, addressing their concerns of hiring full-time versus fractional?
Yeah, for sure. So the difference between a fractional full-time as it relates to an ally is a really compelling thing currently in the fractional space. I think you're right. The mentality is I need a full-timer because I need a full-time ally. And what the market is learning is I need an ally. It's sometimes better that they're not a full-timer. And here's why. So when you have a fractional come in their backpack, they probably have 2 other clients, which means their lessons and learnings in their skill set. So what Carol brings to a client, serving 2 or 3 other clients in terms of HR best practices and leadership and all of that, you are exponentially stronger because of the width and depth of your practice. You are current, you are contemporary, you're dealing with living, breathing challenges, you're solving living, breathing challenges, and you bring that to the table. And that's immensely powerful. With a full-timer, There's definitely a plus, right? Hey, there's somebody who's here to think about this all day. But we really have to question ourselves, what does it mean for them to think about it all day? The status quo is they're going to be in meetings for 6 hours a day. There's going to be other dynamics that really aren't about the best of what you have to offer. It's just going to be the machinery of the office. And when people are plugged in a full-time scenario into the machinery of the office, the systems, the processes, the non-inspiring stuff, and often the detracting stuff. The office is full of meetings now. We can't get enough. It is chock full of distractions. I mean, it's massive amount of distractions, from toxicity to TikTok to whatever, someone coming in to complain about the boss for 3 hours, right? And so you have to question, where am I getting the most value from an ally? Somebody who's sort of grinding and wheeling things out, or somebody who comes in here pretty fresh, pretty inspired, with a broad spectrum of ability to help me solve the big stuff.
I've got a question, John. I love that, because obviously Carol and I both believe in that. We go into a client and we're fresh, and there's a major benefit to that level of energy. When you're working with business owners, do you see any specific order of the fractional, the type of fractional they are bringing in? No, it may be different for most businesses, but I've heard that question come up a lot. Hey, I'm going to bring on my first fractional. What position typically come on first?
Yeah, if a company is bringing on a fractional, they can tap into all the fractional buckets, right? Ops, IT, finance, marketing, sales, HR. They can fish from all of those ponds in fractional because there's resources there. That being said, so whatever is at their jugular, but if it's the first time they're doing it, I think it tends to be they're bringing in somebody from ops or finance first. And when you think about the logic behind that, is all those roles matter. You're not going to advance your company without marketing. You're not going to advance your company without HR. You're not going to advance without sales. But ops and finance have so much influence on where the company is going that the other roles tend to come after that, if it's their first time. Now, every day I talk to people like, John, I need a CMO. I need a fractional CMO. I need a fractional CHRO. That happens all the time. But if it's their first time, I think they're typically thinking ops and IT. I'm sorry, ops and finance.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
When you think about, as you said, the first ones that usually bring in are finance and ops. But when somebody is thinking maybe a little more strategically about which ones to bring in, fractional versus full-time, that's, I think, where I kind of come in and go, that's about workforce planning, right? What is it that the strategy, your top level, your strategy is going to need? How many people at what levels do we need to screw in the light bulb? And then all the outputs that we're expecting from all of that investment into people. Most of us fractionals are executives. We're bringing a lot of strategy. When you talk to other organizations that have embraced the fractional way of working, how are they kind of balancing the fractional to the full time?
We're still early in the adoption of fractional as a model in the economy that I would say the jury is probably out. We have so much to learn. But from what I see is I think the easy first part of that discussion comes around budget. I can have Carol for $90,000 as opposed to $220,000. I'll do that. That's an easy decision to make if the CFO is at the table, and they probably will. Then the other side might say, okay, because we're planning now and we're doing strategic thinking, it's like, what is going to advance us as a business? I think now more than ever, people are resisting the temptation to say warm bodies and butts and seats. And I think they're embracing the idea of, I need thinkers, I need wisdom, I need guidance. Possibly the reason is we're still in year 3 of the pandemic, and we're coming, there's a survival mode thing. But now more than ever, how I see people, companies hiring fractional, they're like, I just can't do butts and seats. I can't add more bodies to the problem. The issues and challenges are bigger. And of course, fractionals, with all that wisdom we carry, are kind of the right population to address that.
Kind of getting into, I love the tangible advice, and it's almost a shift in culture that we're going through right now. What advice would you have for, say, a CEO or a startup founder in working with a fractional, either selecting the right person or just thinking about going fractional instead of a full-time role?
Yeah, I think the first I would give, honestly, and the advice I give all the time is fractional is not only a great solution, it is a wonderful mirror from which to look at your own business. The fractional people, we're not going to faint. We're not going to pass over. We're not going to hold back. We're going to tell you. We tend to be very frank, very firm, very sincere. But we're not paid employees in the sense that you can I have to sort of edit myself. And that then becomes a mirror for the business. Oh, you think it's going to go this way? Well, I got some ideas that sort of contradicts what you're thinking. So if you're the kind of business that it's like, I'm sort of stuck, I can't grow. I don't know. I need some greater level of understanding and awareness, and even self-awareness. Fractional helps tremendously with that. If you're the kind of business who's thinking about people as this probably makes Carol cringe, like they are just butts and seats. They're just a body that we put in place. That's the wrong way to run any business, right? I mean, you have to embrace that you can be vulnerable. You can have it wrong. You will need others to help you succeed. And then the question is, it really isn't a question at the start of what is the number that I have to pay for that? And what is the resume that I have to have for that? I think it's different than that now. What are the characteristics? What are how can I find an asset that challenges us to move forward as opposed to steps in line?
Makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. It's really about that CEO has to check their ego and really see that the value is going to be additive. And it's not a subtraction of what they're capable of doing. It's an additive to what they're capable of doing.
And that's how great companies grow. I mean, that literally is the recipe for great companies. That's Virgin Atlantic. That's, all of these companies, they know. I love Professor Scott Galloway out of NYU Stern. He has this great thing. I quote him all the time. I don't know if he wrote it, but greatness is in the agency of others.
Oh, I love that.
So if you understand that as a leader, okay, if greatness is in the agency, which means it's not in the agency of me. It's not about me, right? It's in the agency of others. Okay, so what is that? How do I harvest the greatness of others, right? Well, it's not really a dictative, toe the line, get in line thing, right? It's what makes you awesome. What do you love to do? What are you great at? What are your ideas, right? That's the agency of others that we need to grow. Those companies that understand that, and I think more and more do. I think people have just tried to survive through the pandemic, like just try to live another day, and now they want to thrive. And to thrive means you need the agency of others. Now the question is, what kind of others? John Arms, of course, is going to advocate, well, start with fractional. I think they're awesome. Yeah, right.
The agency of others and the specialties that different fractionals can bring. I think that because you are in a unique space where you are educating people to become fractionals, and one of the kind of ways that people are finding their value and their impact is to figure out their own personal magic and how they can bring that to their organizations, their clients. What is the thing that we need, not only maybe the fractionals who are listening, but also for the business owners, on how do they better understand which CMO, which finance person? Is it like raising revenue versus ensuring profit margin? Which HR, which is, talent acquisition versus workforce planning? How do we give a little bit more insight into that for both the fractionals and for the business owners?
Yeah. So when it comes to talent and skill, right, which of those two do I want a more digitally centric chief marketing officer? Or do I want a more planning, strategically centric chief marketing officer? Those questions do get asked. And the same thing for HR and the same thing for IT and ops. I think that's a second dimension or second level question. I think the things that people have to really understand is I'm looking for an ally, right? As we were talking about earlier. Who can I trust? Who has been there, done that? Who has the scars? When you start thinking differently about the kind of people you bring in your organization, I think the skill set and those talents that they have honed over the years in that craft of HR or ops or marketing or sales are important. I think they're second level to the more human mindset things that they bring. I would love to have on my team, if I needed an HR person right now, I want the most scarred person that could ever exist. Not bitter, right? But scarred. Someone who has been there and done that, because they can absolutely, that person will be able to look 5 miles down the road than I could ever look, because that's their category. Now, whether or not you were great at this aspect of HR or that, you've been there, done that, and you've been scarred and you've been burned, but you've had great successes, but you've had great failures. Like, that's what you want on your team.
Yeah.
And it is something that CEOs are learning. And it's taking time, but it is happening in a wonderful way, because guess what? You have an ally. Oh, well, I'm bringing in Jason. Look at that grizzled old guy. He's got marketing scars all over the place. He's got a marketing limp. He's been there and done that. That is the kind of person you want on your team. Especially with innovation, right? With technology, like, oh, what do you know? What did we all know about 20 years about SEO? Very little. Where is SEO now? What do we all know today about AI? Where is it going? I think we lean too much in terms of technical acuity and far less into the human side of things, the experience and the wisdom. I think progress happens on the shoulders of wisdom, seeing around corners.
That's really interesting. I love this. As I'm listening to you talk, John, I'm thinking the companies that you do work with as a CMO, they're getting just so much more because you're coming in with all of the decades of experience, and you're talking about, marketing really, really well, but you also know a lot about business and business strategy. Yeah. I can tell by how you're talking. That's another benefit, I think, of Fractional, especially Fractional that a professional that's been at it for a decade or two, or in some cases 3 or 4.
Yeah, and Carol, you were picking at that a little bit, and it's important to pull out, how do people understand their value, right? A lot of people walk by the very first order of value. As one, you're here on the planet. You're a human being. You breathe oxygen. You've seen things and done things, and don't underestimate the fact that you're frickin' here after 30 years in the HR world. That's not nothing. That's a lot of something, right? And then you sort of keep going from that, and the wisdom you acquire and the network that you have and the perspective that you bring. Half my time I'm working on marketing problems as a fractional CMO. The other half of the time I'm working on more things around leadership, rallying people. A big thing for me as a fractional CMO is I feel it's my responsibility in marketing and not to make sure that the company is always, giving goosebumps to people. I can give you the best SEO program ever, but I have to give you goosebumps. Employees and customers alike. Like, why am I here? I have to be motivated. Why am I going to do business with you? I have to be motivated. So a good CMO should do that. And that's not just me. That's what those of us who are grizzled and old and older. Honestly, I'm an optimist. But one thing I think we're doing is I think we're challenging the whole foundation of ageism stereotypes. I believe CEOs and fractionals alike, every year we're in business, our value only goes up because our wisdom pool is only deeper. And the reason we tend to think about the inverse of that has mostly to do with leftovers from the Industrial Revolution, when your value was, if you could spend 8 hours and work at 10 miles per hour on a line, you had greater value than somebody who could work 6 at 4 miles an hour. Very production line oriented, Industrial Revolution stuff. We adopted that and brought that into our current economy. Well, it's not going to work, right? Our value is far deeper. The dimensions of the human brain, our value is not limited to what our hands and arms can do in a day. Mostly it's contextualized by what we think and the perspective we bring. It's a whole new world, man. It's a beautiful thing.
That is so true that we are busting that ageism myth.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that once you hit 50, 55, 60, you're no longer valuable.
Yeah.
And yet these, I have young kids, teenagers, and I'm sure, everybody knows they think they know everything.
Yes.
And those
we know everything.
entrepreneurials who are, 20 and 30 years old, they have that many years on the planet.
Yeah.
But they, again, just the time spent on this earth and in the experiences is something that should be leveraged to the success of themselves and their organization. And I love that you brought that up. And I hope that our listeners recognize that you probably want to find somebody who's over 40, over 45, because you're going to get more value for your dollar. Seriously.
That's right. That's right. They are going to bring you things that you can't bring yourself. That is the thing about the leaders and CEOs and boards and things that I think is very encouraging to me is I think they're looking at growth through new lenses and different lenses. I think they're looking at, dictating our growth and trying to squeeze growth out of the economy is one thing. To let go and allow it to happen, again, through the agency of others, through some of these energies we talked about, is a far more successful role or way to pursue growth. One of the greatest books that I just have in my bag all the time is The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John Mann. Great book. And we talk about the energies of Fractional. And one of those energies is the giving energy, the giving spirit, and really, what that does for a Fractional, what that does for anybody. But the basic core of it is if I come to every day with a giving heart, I'm going to have a good day. No matter what I do, I'm going to have a pretty good day. I'm not going to get bogged down, and the universe will bring back to me what I give. So it's not going to be, hey, if I help Carol today, she's going to help me tomorrow. I think Bob argues and John argue in the book of 50-50 is a losing proposition. The more value you bring, the more comes back to you in the world. Well, not only do Fractionals embrace this and we train it, is I think businesses are finding the same thing. I can't squeeze my growth out of the economy. I have to do something else. I have to empower others to do it. Give more in order to enable our growth. Very woo-woo dimensions.
It's, it's the abundance versus scarcity mindset.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
We've been running since 1976 on the scarcity mindset. And what that has done is that's given us a 1% that, has most of the money. And that's not good for any society. That's not a sustainable model. And yet here we are. The abundance mindset is, I think, the next generation. I think that is going to spur growth, cultural innovation, technical innovation like we've never seen. And for the most part, I think it's going to help us repeat the core of what makes us awesome as a society: innovation, experimentation, unity. So many of these things that, quite honestly, they're sort of the American way. Like self-determination is a very American ideal, right? Well, that's the fractional model. It's built on self-determination. That's also the small business model. Now that we're able to empower both of those, like, oh my gosh, as my dad used to say, Katie, bar the door. It's just going to just go flying through. So I'm very optimistic about what the new normal is, and these new models like fractional and small business growth and the giving mindset can do. I'm very optimistic about our next stage.
It's really interesting listening to you, John, because I'm not sure what I was expecting when you came on, but a lot of CMO conversations typically talk about metrics and very technical, analytical types of things, and of course creativity. But what you've brought into this conversation is a bit of spirituality in there as well. And it just goes to show that you get that level of broad experience when you're working with fractionals. I think it's great.
I feel like we are at an awakening. This must be. In fact, I heard Bill Nye talk about this recently. Is these times now feel like the 60s did then. Yeah. The awakening, the turn, the change in culture, just, the norms breaking down. So that the norms in the 60s were segregated schools. How terrible is that? It took the 60s for us to get rid of that, right? We had an awakening. And I feel like right now we are in another awakening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can look at that two ways. You can look at it as like, oh, it's massive change. I'm scared to death. I'm going to go crawl in a hole and I'm going to fight it. Or it's nothing but opportunity. I mean, I'm not saying rose-colored glasses, but if you want to take the optimistic view, then do it and find the opportunity that all this change has. Not to take advantage of it, just to follow in its wake.
I'm curious. You gave us 2 of your energies, and I know you don't want to give us them all.
No, I'll give you more.
Question is mentorship one of the energies? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that is an added benefit that many people are not taking advantage of, or maybe just aren't uncovering the benefit and how deep it can go.
Yeah, that kind of fits in the ally energy bucket a little bit, but we tend to look at mentorship in two ways. One from an ally, right? We can literally mentor our clients. Hey, you've never done HR before? I'm here for you. I'm Carol. I get it, right? Well, you're a mentor for your client. They're like, I don't know, Carol. That's why you're here. You've got the 30 years of experience in this. So you're literally mentoring your client and their people in that way. We are trying to figure out what we can do as a fractional population, as a fractional society, to take the generation behind us and help them along. Because I feel we have a responsibility we're at a good place as fractionals. We're capitalizing on our wisdom. We're monetizing it. We're using it. Like, we are in a really good place. That needs to transfer to the next generation. And so we're not sure, but we're in our online communities and our in-person communities, we're like, how are we going to bring in the 30-year-olds and the 20-year-olds? We want to help them. And I got kids that age, but they're a beautiful generation. They come with their own social norms and mores. And of course, the generation above them is going to criticize them. And, of course, the generation below them is going to honor them, because that's how it always goes. But they don't need to be us, because they're not, but they need to see the world through our eyes, and we can help them advance. We don't want anybody to think that they have to go from college to cubicle to grave. There's more to life than that. Whether you're a silent generation, Gen X, millennial, there's more to life than that. Well, the next generation is pretty much resisting college to cubicle now. They're like, I am not going to work for one company for 50 years. I watched my dad do that, and he got laid out. And not me personally, but people see it. Like, dad put in or mom put in 30 years at company X, got laid off, 1 year of pay, not doing it. Not doing it. It was painful for the family. Some divorces happen and things like that. So they're not going to do that anyway. They're just not. So you can bitch about the millennials all you want. Listen, they're a bigger population than boomers. They're going to do what they want. And so, what can we do to help them live happy, fulfilling, thriving, impactful lives? We can do that as fractionals. So I don't know how we mentor, but it's on our radar.
I was going to say, John, I've been a teacher like you pretty much all my life. Martial arts was my kind of my discipline. And one thing I've always been big on is that leadership and mentorship. And so my question to you is, if there are millennial professionals out there listening to this, what advice would you have for them? Say, if they're wanting to become a CMO, how can they get on that path, especially with COVID and a less connected connected culture these days? What can they do to get to where you're at?
Yeah, well, they don't want to be where I'm at, but there's better places to be. But no, I'm joking. The first thing I think I would answer that question is, please, 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 if you're younger than a fractional, or if you're younger than a Gen Xer, pick up the book From Strength to Strength. The author's last name is Brooks. I can't remember if it's Alan or Albert. I apologize, author, but great book, From Strength to Strength. My friend Jenny Erickson, who's got a great podcast on workaholism, we were talking about that not long ago. And what that book will tell you is there's a natural evolution that, again, they never told us this when we were working in corporate America. Like, there's an evolution, right? When you're younger, you have what's called fluid intelligence. As you get older, you have what's called crystallized intelligence. Well, just having an awareness of that, like, that's where you're going. Whether you choose to or not, you're going to go there, because that's evolution, right? Great book, to read. That'll position you to be in a position like we're in as fractionals. Just an understanding that there's going to come a point in my life when I am more suited to utilize my crystallized intelligence, my wisdom, my guidance, than I am to using my fluid intelligence, which is essentially your ability to grind, I think, for the most part. So new dynamics there. So that's one thing. The other is resist, right? Resist. If you have a feeling in your gut as a millennial that you are stuck in a rut and you're just going to wait it out for the healthcare or some other benefit, get the hell out of there. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. So if you are not feeling like you're making impact or fulfilled or finding opportunity, get the hell out of there. Life is short. Go find a different path. So I think that's it. Will that lead to fractional? Yeah, it probably will, because fractional is about that. But don't languish. Don't languish in a cubicle. It's not good for you. Literally, I've got a book coming out this year. It's called Revolt, The Rise of Fractional and the Death of Full Time. And I can't remember if it's chapter 3 or chapter 4, but I started with the number. It's true. The number one cause of death in America is heart disease. The number one cause of heart disease is stress. The number one cause of stress is work. Houston, we have a problem. So my counsel to everybody young, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't work until you're 65 and have a heart attack.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Great advice.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something unique that you've put together, a first ever and inaugural, if you will, event. Please tell our listeners, because I think these CEOs and business owners and people who are more interested in learning about how fractional executives can support their companies, they could actually come somewhere coming soon.
Absolutely. FRAC 2023. FRAC 2023. The world's first international fractional conference. That is coming up in October, at the end of October. We've got people coming from as far away as the UK. And what we're doing is we're centralizing fractional for the American economy. We're giving everybody a home. We're giving us a place. We're giving us our first South by Southwest or HubSpot's inbound. We need a place, right? And we need all of that energy and intelligence and wisdom and opportunity to coalesce. So at the end of October, we're going to gather in Minneapolis. It's my hometown, and it's where VoyageurU began. So we're like, let's start here. There's going to be 30 FRACs over the next 30 years, right? But this one's going to be here, and we are gathering fractionals, businesses who hire them. We're gathering the other ecosystem around fractional to provide learning and intelligence and connection and community for the 33 million small businesses in America that could really benefit from fractional help. And then the inverse of that with fractionals who are, we often refer to people as fractionally curious because it's new. So we want to train and educate on that, but we also want to give people their community. For this 2 days, we have our place, we have our tribe, we have our energy, we have our I think the Marines call it our esprit de corps, right? We've got our spirit. And I will tell you that our community, it's not me, Rob Smith and Liz Otteson and, Katie Walter, and there's just so many people. They raised their hand and said, we need to make a thing. The world needs this from us. And they just grabbed it and ran. Marcus Genslinger, they made this. It's one of those things that you set the goal. There's nothing that's going to prevent the energy that they have to make this thing amazing. So yeah, that's coming soon. So if you are a fractional or fractionally curious, you should probably come. And if you're a business that's not on the Fortune 500, you should probably come because there's resources and assets for you up and down and throughout the whole 2 days. And it's not February in Minnesota, October. October in Minnesota is beautiful.
2 questions for you, John. One, because I'm from Wisconsin, are Green Bay Packer fans allowed? Green Bay Packer fans are allowed, yes. Okay, great.
They just can't wear the cheese head.
Okay. Don't have to worry about that. And 2, can you maybe just touch on some of the topics or the speakers? I actually hear there may be an HR speaker that we know presenting at this.
Yeah, there's this woman named Carol Fraser.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you met her. Yeah. So your wonderful podcast is going to be there, of course. And Carol's going to have a panel. And it's actually not just, I talked to a couple other HR people today, like elevated HR pros. Yeah. They're like, oh, can we come in? We want to support and help and all that. There's a woman named Heather Polivka. She's here in town. I don't know if you met her, but I'm like, we got to get you and Carol at least having drinks together, if not more. And so there will probably be several panels around that. But the speakers and the topics we're going to cover are really those right to the bone of a growing business and of a fractional supporting a growing business. So FRAC 101, how do I do this for the fractionally curious? Businesses, how do I hire a fractional and get the most out of them? There's, I think right now on the list, we've got 30 different learning tracks, half for business, half for fractionals, because they go together. It's like chocolate and peanut butter. Make a great flavor together, or like the Oreo cookie. And we're just going to cover, it's just going to be so cool, right? We're going to have speakers on HR in fractional and marketing in fractional and insights in fractional and just so much stuff that we all need. And there isn't a home for that.
Sure.
There's millions of small businesses that they're starting to get wind, right? Like this fractional thing I think is interesting. We should probably know about that. They're starting to get wind of it, right? Because it's now a search term and all of that stuff. So we want to give them a place where they can learn about it. And it's not just about the economics, the money they can save by deploying fractionals. It really is about how it can help a fractional professional like a Carol or a Jason can advance their business, which is what we're all here for. So the three things on there that are on that page when you go to FRAC 2023, we exist. It's a VoyageurU credo and vision, and same thing for FRAC 2023 is we want to provide opportunity, freedom, and fulfillment for every worker in America. If you're going to your fractional job and serving your client fractionally, when you have opportunity and freedom and fulfillment on your brain as part of your day, everybody wins. Everybody wins, and not everybody has that in their careers. Most people don't. We want to help them with that.
And how, John, can they find you? The FRAC conference is FRAK?
FRAC 2023.
Okay.
Yep. You can go to the VoyageurU website and find a link. If you Google FRAC 2023 Minneapolis, you will find it.
Okay.
It is FRAK 2023. Yep. You will find it there. You can find me on LinkedIn. I love everybody. I try to get to everybody as best I can, but you can find me on LinkedIn, and I probably post something about it daily because I'm so excited. And it's probably, and we're starting to get a lot of. I mean, it's 2 months away, and people are like, we're getting some sign up. So hop in there quick because we do have a limit. I think we can take. It's this wonderful place in Minneapolis called the Finovation Lab, and it's just a beautiful environment for something like this. And I think we can have 500 people. That's the size of the event venue. There's 4 floors, and there's a brewery on the ground floor, so that doesn't hurt.
That's a motivator.
That's a great motivator. Both alcoholic and non-alcoholic versions. I always have to say that because I drink the NA stuff. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, John. This has been extremely enlightening, not only for our audience, but for myself and Jason and all the fractionals who are listening to the Fractional Edge. And I want to remind our audience that if you really want to differentiate the type of impact and value you can give your clients, you really need to be considering fractional leaders and fractional executives as the linchpin to get your company to the next level. So thank you, all of our listeners. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on our next episode.
Can I make one more plug?
Yes, go.
Oh, yeah.
One more thing I want to say. If you are listening, please stay dialed into the Fractional Edge. We all have a tremendous amount of learning ahead to really thrive over the next 10, 15 years. This is one of the few places where you can get access, almost constant access to learn. So if you haven't bookmarked it, bookmark it. If you haven't found Jason or Carol on LinkedIn, do it. Keep your finger on the pulse of Fractional. This is a great place to do it.
I mean, that's
Thank you.
How to do it.
He's marketing. Yep. I love it.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to the Fractional Edge. We hope you enjoyed our insightful discussions and feel inspired to unleash your competitive edge.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. You can also connect with our podcast guests to benefit from their expertise and explore collaboration opportunities by visiting our website, thefractionaledge.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the power of workforce planning and fractional executives in today's competitive business landscape. Until then, take care and keep growing.